attachment styles are the best predictor of relationship dynamics. And very often I hear from my clients, if only I knew that I was avoidant, if only I knew that I was anxiously attached, things would have been different with my partner. And this is why this video is very important, because I'm going to explain why. Why are we acting this way in relationship? Why some of our insecurities are making us behave in a certain way. And sometimes we feel, I don't understand my partner. If I was in his shoes, if I was in her shoes, I wouldn't react this way. I wouldn't do those things. I wouldn't treat my partner this way. Well, in this video, you'll understand why they're doing this. That's the whole point. And we're going to discuss in a second about the circle of security, because attachment equals safety. The reason you potentially are struggling with your partner, it's not because of feelings, it's not because of communication, it's because of that sense of safety. And we'll explain this in a second. So attachment theory explains how early relationships, so relationship with what we call primary attachment figure, or parents or caregiver, will translate into adult behavior, right? So the way we behave with our parents, the way we attached with our parents, will dictate how we are with our primary attachment figure as adults, i.e. our partner. And so you have three main styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and the fourth one, which is fearful avoidant, which is a mix of anxious and avoidant. And so this style will affect how you give love, how you receive love. And if you're, for example, anxious and your partner is avoidant, you'll have two ways of receiving and giving love that will be fundamentally different. And this is why sometimes we feel like we're not speaking the same language. This is why sometimes I don't understand why he says this or he does this with me. It doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense if you know attachment theory. So anxious, very quickly, anxious, avoidant, or secure. Anxious, they need reassurance. They have this deep-rooted fear of abandonment. And so when they are in a relationship, they are constantly checking that their partner is not about to leave them. They need to be reassured. There's also an element of self-esteem or sense of self, which is lower than other attachment styles. They feel like they don't necessarily are worthy of love, or they're not good enough. Now, avoidant, what they fear is intimacy. They fear being vulnerable, and they value independence. They want to be self-reliant. They developed at a young age this idea that you don't need anyone, right? You can do things on your own. Because if you ask something, I would dismiss you, for example. And so self-reliance will be obviously clashing with intimacy, with relationship. Because the default, the safe space is to be on your own. Secure is what we need to aim for, is that we are comfortable with closeness and autonomy, and we trust our partner, which is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship, is trust. If you're not sure whether you're anxious avoidant, fearful avoidant, I put together a free assessment. Have a look in the description. It will give you some, so your style, and also some recommendation of things you could read and learn to better connect with your partner. So as I discussed, anxiously attached, they often feel needy, insecure relationship. They feel like, oh, I don't want to bother you, right? I know you're more important than me. Sometimes they feel unloved if they don't get like enough attention. Again, it's about the reassurance element. If you don't text me, if you don't tell me, if you don't buy me things, I won't feel loved. And I need this reassurance constantly. Because I fear rejection. I really want to be reassured. I'm really insecure around attention, around your feelings. And so this neediness sometimes push their partner away because they feel, I can't give you what you want. Sometimes I hear my clients telling me, well, my ex told me he can't give me what I want, what I need. And so the question is, okay, let's figure out. And if we realize that it's really driven by insecurities around fear, around confidence, and self-esteem, it's something that you can work on. Because you don't need to be reassured by your partner. You should feel safe by default. Right? So it's important to understand those things, because sometimes we feel like, well, he doesn't love me. He didn't text the other day. Therefore, he doesn't love me. She doesn't want me to, I don't know, move in together, and we've just been together for 2 weeks. So she doesn't love me. I give extreme examples to make a point. But you see, it's really this idea of like, I need to be reassured at all costs because I don't feel safe. We're going to discuss about the safety in a second, because the safety for anxious and avoidant are different. For avoidant, they need space. It's really hard to be close to someone. They feel smothered, they feel pressured anytime they're too close to someone. And what they fear, and that the reason they are sometimes workaholic or spend a lot of time at work, is because at work you can be independent, you don't have to be vulnerable, you can do your own thing, you can excel, you can get praise, but you don't have to open up. You don't have to be vulnerable, right? Intimacy is scary. I'm an avoidant. Or I used to be an avoidant. And the idea is that it seems like a superpower, right? I'm strong. I don't have to depend on anyone, right? Therefore, I'm resilient. That's sometimes the narrative that we have. And therefore, when I try to develop a relationship with someone, because a relationship means I need to lose a form of independence, right? It's about compromise. I can't be the only one choosing where we go on holidays. We have to decide together, for example. We have to collaborate. And this could be overwhelming, because I feel I'm not in charge. I'm not in control. And I don't feel safe. And so being vulnerable is a weakness for avoidance. But the thing is, if you read the literature and if you think about it for a second, being vulnerable is how you build intimacy. It's how you build deeper connection. And that's why avoidance, they struggle with connection. They have shallow relationships. And again, at work, it's easy because you don't have to talk about your fears, your insecurities, your trauma with your colleagues, right? And so the need for space can be triggering. And again, if we don't understand that our partner is avoidant, when he or she asks us to spend a bit of time on their own, or just don't want to have that difficult discussion right now, we feel like they are dismissing me. They don't care. I'm trying to come up with something that bothers me, and they dismiss me. Therefore, they don't care. That's why it's very important to understand whether your partner is avoidant, you're anxious, to figure out that it's not necessarily about you. It's not about the things you're fighting about. It's really about, okay, with this situation, with this triggering element, we would react differently. It's not because they don't love you, or it's not because they are over emotional. It's just because of their attachment style. And so the goal is obviously to be secure. And everybody can develop a secure attachment style. We are not bound to our attachment. In a way, however, I feel that if we have avoidant tendencies, we always have avoidant tendencies. And if you have anxious tendencies, we always have anxious tendencies. But the point is like to be smarter than our impulse. And so what we have to aim for is to feel safe both with intimacy and alone time. So if you're an anxious person, you have to find ways to be on your own and to be happy and fulfilled on your own. If you're avoidant, you have to find ways to open up, to connect, to be vulnerable, right? Also, one element is about communication, obviously. Because they feel safe, they can clearly communicate. So if you compare to an avoidant, they will say things, and they will say it calmly, because the other value of secure attachment is they are very strong in emotional regulation. They'll be able to distance themselves, to switch off this automatic process, this impulse, those emotional reactions. They will get triggered like anyone, but they won't react out of fear or out of insecurities. And so this is, studies have shown, the best way to have happier, healthier relationship is to act as a secure couple. There's no other way around. If you do this, you have healthier relationship. No debate about that. Circle of security. Just to explain you, because I think it's important to understand, it's interesting to understand where it's coming from. And if you have kids, it's also very interesting. When you raise kids, you have to develop their autonomy, right? But either the extreme would be to, okay, you're 2 years old, here's a nappy, go and play and earn some money. You're grown up. Versus, I will do everything for you. I'm so scared that you get hurt that I won't let you explore. And so when you raise the aim to raise a healthy kid, and I'm a dad, it's impossible to get it right. You're always going one or the other. The point is to find the moderation. So on one end, you need to support exploration. So that's the upside. So watch me, help me, enjoy. So it's kind of a supportive element. If you don't do that and you are an helicopter parent, and you see them at the park, the playground sometimes, they're always like bodyguards behind their kids, so scared that they will eat sand or get into a fight, etc. The problem is that when you do that, at some stage in their life, they'll have to be independent, right? They'll be disappointed. They'll get hurt, right? And those kids, they haven't learned how to self-soothe. It's harder for them. They're not confident. And that's why they have, again, it's simplifying things, but a lower self-esteem. They're not confident because they need someone. Okay, we are back to this neediness element. And so the other element is whenever you explore and you feel that you need some support from your partner, I need to be able to get back to you, into your arms, so you can soothe me. So there's an element of self-soothing, but also soothing with their parent. With avoidant kids, they had the exploration. Go and explore. But don't rely on me. If you're hurt, if you're sad, because I don't have the clue of how I can soothe you. Either I don't care, but most of the time it's just like, I don't have the clue. I don't have the time. My parents were working really hard. They were super loving parents. But it's kind of, okay, I know you're busy, so I don't want to bother you. Type of thing. So you see, when you raise kids, and again, it's very important when you have kids, it's finding the right balance between developing autonomy and a sense of safety. I let you explore, see the world, grow up, but I'm here for you if you need me. And if you think about it for a second, this is how a relationship should be. You have your life, you have your friends, and anytime you feel upset, anytime you feel sad, anytime you feel scared, you can come to see me and we can discuss. Anytime you have a problem, I'll be here for you. This has to be the standard where we need to aim for, right? Save this picture, stick it somewhere. It's very important because sometimes we complexify simple things. This just makes sense. And it explains why perhaps right now you're struggling in your relationship. Because that secure base, this safe haven, was completely different from your history, from your past, than your partner's. Now, it's important to understand the past, but again, you're not bound by your attachment style. Here is just to inform you. This is why you react this way in this situation. This is why your partner reacts this way in this situation. And obviously, it's something we can, developing a secure attachment style is something you can do, we can all do. And it's not a question of willpower, trauma, character, situation. We can all do it. It's very mechanic. it's not a condition. It's very mechanic. With CBT and the right tools, it's something you can change. And so one way to change is to be aware of those triggers. So situations, again, where we feel like, why is he doing this? Why is she saying this? Where we feel like we are complete opposite. Where we feel like it's never going to work out, right? Because like the way they react. So when we are triggered, it's feeling like, hold on, this is an attachment wound. I'm getting triggered because this is touching an attachment wound. And when you realize this and figure out like, hold on, I'm walking away from this conversation. I'm walking away from a conversation. This is something important, perhaps. Let's try to explore why it's hard. I feel upset that he didn't text me, that he is asking for space. Why is that? And when you are more aware of those triggers, you can switch from an automatic response to a conscious one. Because it's really what's going on here. It's very much unconscious, driven by the system 1 brain. Automatic response. This happens, that reminds me of how I was treated as a kid, and this is my response. And if we're anxious, what we call in attachment theory is protest behavior. I will lash out, I'll be emotional, I'll be crying, I'll be confronting. If we're avoidant, I'll be avoiding, I'll be dismissing, I'll be walking out. Because that's what I used to do when I was a kid. The problem is, and this is why it was reinforced in childhood, those strategies, those coping mechanisms worked perfectly when we were younger. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Walking away from any form of conflict, difficult conversation, that worked perfectly for me. All of my childhood, throughout my childhood. And if you're anxious, protesting and yelling and asking for reassurance, and that was working for you, for example. And that's why when you do something and it works out, so you continue using it. And when you're a child, you don't know any better. You're not a child anymore, you're an adult. And the point is not to blame you for acting as a child, because I was acting as a child. I still sometimes act like a child. The point is to realize that we are doing that. And realize that we have the tools, we have the resources now with modern science, studies on neuroscience, studies on psychology, that we can change those things. And we can decide to be more aware, more in control of those thoughts, of those mechanisms. So, for example, fear of rejection could be a delayed text. You told me you would write to me in the evening and you wrote to me in the morning. And whenever I feel like anxious, clingy, this is a sign you're getting triggered. When we feel like a loss of independence, she's asking me, I want to go play golf this Sunday. But I feel there's a tension. I feel it's hard. Abandonment fear. This is not a true example, by the way. Abandonment fear. Past neglect. Again, it's hard for me to let you go on that trip. It's hard for me to not to be around you or not to FaceTime you. Around this reassurance. And sometimes it's about being, abandonment that happened in our childhood. But it's important to understand that this primary attachment figure, our parents, is not the same as our current primary attachment figure. Yes, sometimes we are attracted to people who feel familiar to our parents, and it is important to recognize why, but they are not our parents. And one of the tiniest difference with when we are children and when we are adults is that we're adults. We can make our own decisions. We can decide to be smarter than just our impulse. So as I said, it starts with self-awareness. So first of all, understanding your attachment style, understanding your partner's attachment style. And with practice, you can build security and trust. If you're in a relationship, it's something you can practice with your partner. If you are single, it's something you can practice when you date people, when you can sort of see also, because the way you are with your partner is somehow when you're avoidant at work. When you're anxious at work. Obviously, it doesn't have the same emotional weight because you rarely feel triggered for the same reason and not as much as with your partner, but it's important in the context of other relationships as well. And so the point is, therapy is obviously the go-to practice. Self-reflection is something that you can do on your own. If you want to read a book, I highly recommend the book Attached from Amin Levin. I was thinking of writing a book about attachment theory, and then of course I knew this book, and honestly there's everything in that book. Now there's other books on attachment theory, but if you read this one, that's enough. And with practice, being aware of this, being motivated, knowing that you can achieve it, you can heal those attachment wounds. It's not a question of if, because you will. It's the question of what are you doing today? What are the sort of steps, the resources that you will implement to help you develop a secure relationship, a secure attachment style? If you want more tips, more help, let me know in the comment section. If you like this video or want more video, don't forget to click on the like, subscribe. That does help me a lot. If you feel like this is a video worth sharing, don't hesitate to share it to a friend, and I will see you next time.